Clear prop!
My name's Richard Mindek, one of the club flight instructors at the 43rd.
And also a maintenance officer.
And also the maintenance officer for the Mooney at this time. Previously the maintenance officer for the Archer.
Okay. And how long have you been in the club?
Let's see, going back about 2010, I believe, so about 7 years.
Yeah. About how many hours do you have now?
About 2,350 flight hours total. Mostly Piper, Cessna type aircraft, a lot of Mooney hours now, a couple hundred Mooney hours, some Cirrus hours, a little bit of turbine time, and a PC-12.
And what type of flying are you doing in the club? I mean, you're instructing, but
Yep.
What other types of flying are you doing?
Mainly going out to the islands. My family vacations out toward Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, Rhode Island area. So bringing family members out to the islands, Martha's Vineyard, Block Island, giving rides, those sorts of things. Just some fun stuff.
Yeah.
Besides the flight instruction.
And you and Joey, one of the other members, took a flight down to.
Oh yeah,
You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. High Point. A couple of years back, Joey Cohn, actually previous maintenance officer on the Archer as well. He was looking to get checked out in our Mooney, and came up with the idea of flying down to Atlanta, where his family is from. At the time, my daughter and her husband were living down in Atlanta, and said, "Hey, why don't we use that flight as the checkout for the Mooney?" And so we agreed to do that, and made a flight down to Atlanta Peachtree Airport, PDK. We stopped in, Roanoke on the way down, about 2.5, 3 hours down to there. And of course, in those kind of flights, it was during the summertime, all sorts of challenges, thunderstorms around near the Washington ADIS, so we had to be concerned about that a little bit. And of course, getting into a big metropolitan area. So a lot of challenges. It was a lot of fun. Did quite a bit of planning, of course, but really kind of the experience of my flying career up through that point. That was probably the longest trip I've taken, and I know Joey had fun too.
You want to talk just briefly about how a new member would get checked into the club, the process?
Sure. They fill out a little bit of paperwork to explain what their background is. Of course, you've got to be a private pilot to be considered for membership in the club. And then basically we invite you to a meeting, get you a feel for what the club is like, how it runs, who the members are, get you to meet some people. And as far as being accepted as a member into the club, basically what you do is go up for a flight with one of the club instructors. We usually start with our Archer. That's probably the easiest plane to fly. And it really amounts to doing a little bit of familiarization with the aircraft. If you haven't ever flown an Archer before, we have you do a brief written exam. It amounts to a couple of pages of familiarizing yourself through the POH about the specs of the aircraft, a couple of simple calculations. And so we sit down for the first half an hour doing that, and then we go for a flight. And honestly, the flight is a lot like a BFR. I'd call it a friendly BFR. We basically just get a feel for how you fly, what kind of a pilot you are. And at that point, there is a chance for the instructor to say, "Hey, I'm not sure if this guy's going to fit in with the club." We rarely ever had that happen. Obviously, if someone's not safe, it is a filter point. But really, what it is just getting us to know who the pilot is. Once in a while, a second or even a third flight is required, depending on the experience of the pilot. And then that results in basically an email to the club board and a recommendation to say, "Hey, we should accept this person into the club," and they have approval to fly the Archer. Once that's done, then we do the same thing for the 182. and then the Mooney is the final one. Mooney is a little bit more complicated in that the insurance requires about 10 hours of instruction unless you've had previous experience in a Mooney. And there are insurance requirements. You've got to have 200 hours of PIC time. And it is a complex aircraft, so if someone has never flown a complex aircraft, they would be required to get that sign off, and that would be done as part of the checkout.
Any other aspects of the club that you would think new members might want to know about?
I think just the opportunity to interact with other members, to fly with other people. I know myself, even as an instructor, it's helped me to learn a lot from other pilots. For example, I've flown with corporate pilots. I've flown with people of all different levels of experience in flying, even former military pilots. And then there's the camaraderie, going on trips for breakfast somewhere. We have a plane wash. We have various fly-ins in the local area, the Simsbury fly-in. So there's a lot of opportunity to kind of link up with other pilots. And the planes themselves. The Archer alone, it's not the fastest plane, but it's certainly a beautiful plane, in very good condition. Nice plane to take your family somewhere, a trip to Block Island. The 182 is fabulous as far as the weight carrying, low carrying capacity, and the speed. And then, of course, the Mooney, long trips, wonderful airplane for long trips. Between the camaraderie with other pilots, getting additional experience and interaction, and the planes themselves, I'd say this club is one of the best around, really.
Yeah.